This is the Marketing Agency Power Hour, and I'm your host, Cal Wilder. Each week, we'll power through discussions on business challenges, success stories, and game-changing strategies. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, provider of bookkeeping and accounting for marketing agencies. Let's get started. So I'm thrilled to be speaking to today's guest. He's a marketing leader, an engaging speaker, an innovative digital media strategist, and a leading social media specialist. He's a marketing expert focused on achieving companies' business goals using intelligent marketing and cost-efficient tactics. He's an educator also who's trained companies to elevate their social media presence and overall marketing capabilities. He's a program instructor at Hofstra University. He's the owner, head kahuna, and chief bottle washer of CGT Marketing. Mitch Tobol, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Appreciate it.
So what's the single most powerful strategy for success in your agency now?
I think the single most, well, it's several, but I'll see if I could decide the top. I think the top strategy is that understanding marketing's place in the scheme of business, that marketing is subservient to the actual goals of a business, that marketing can help a business achieve their goals. Marketing is not an end to itself. I think that's the number one strategy driving my business, because I think clients and future clients appreciate the fact that I'm more concerned about their business rather than selling them a suite of services and moving along.
Right. I think that's great observation and a great value, because I've certainly in my career worked with and met a number of marketing folks who thought it was great if you had a nice looking website or you sent out a bunch of emails or you generated a bunch of leads, but without regard to, what was the conversion rate, what was the value of the customers that marketing produced, how profitable were those customers, what was the client retention rate of those customers. So, right, I definitely agree with you. Marketing is a means to an end in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's interesting because I just had a conversation yesterday morning with a client. We're generating, I think, about 80 leads a month. And the salesmen are like, yeah, but we call and they're not ready. And so I had to educate the sales staff on where these leads are coming from. This is top of funnel. They're assuming a lead comes in, it's already warm. They could just call it up and sell. And that's not the case. So understanding how the intent of the lead, where the lead is coming through, what their expectations are is critical important to any success. When in this instance, we're tasked with generating leads. So we are, but the leads have to be treated in a specific way so that it's appropriate for the person that extended the hand out, right? They're not looking to buy just yet. They're looking for an interaction. So top of funnel is really all about interactions, not transactions. And that's one of the things that I had to educate the salespeople on. So that
Right.
was a fun conversation.
Typically, when you work with a client, how far into the sales process do you get?
So I'm not a sales trainer. I don't manage the salespeople. I love salespeople because they're integral to the process. If they don't buy into marketing or what marketing's doing, if they don't understand the lead flow process and where they fit in terms of the funnel, then the program's not going anywhere. There's going to be that built-in conflict. I know sales trainers, there are a couple of guys I have a huge respect for, because when I start with a client, I often say, who's your best salesperson? Let me get on a Zoom call with them. Let me get on a phone call with them. I want to hear how they're selling the company. And actually, if it's hopefully a Zoom or some type of online camera activated situation, I don't even know what to call them anymore. Little boxes on the computer, right? Then I get to see the reactions of what the salesperson is saying. Not necessarily the salesperson is reacting, trying to sell a product and looking for buying signals. I'm not looking for buying signals. I'm more looking for what is actually helping that person get to the point of trust to be able to open up and tell honestly what their pains are so the salesperson can solve them for them.
When we spoke the other day, you also were talking about your vertical focus and how that's been very effective for your firm. Could you speak to that?
So what's fascinating happened in the industry, years ago, it used to be your marketing. Said, okay, no matter what the company is, come on in. Now it's like, what experience do you have? You story. This guy makes this incredibly unusual connector. There's two manufacturers in the entire country. And he said, well, do you have experience marketing this? And I said, if I did, it would be for your competitor, not for you. So people look for experience. So our experience is that, and what I sell actually, or market, or just expound on, is the fact that we have a tremendous experience in clients' target markets. That's what we bring to the table. We understand the engineers and mechanical engineers, the electrical engineers, because we specialize in manufacturing companies, right? We specialize in service companies, for instance, lawyers and accountants and coaches, and we understand how a law firm needs to comply, and financial people too, forgive me, how financial has to comply as well as legal services need to comply, and how to mesh that with marketing, because it's really sort of anti-marketing. You got to mesh it with the ability to show benefits so that someone is attracted. Then finally, we have a specialty in beauty products. So we truly understand and have very deep knowledge in hair, by the way. I know you and I are,
Yeah. I'm not a good prospective customer for that.
but I don't, it's what we bring to the table. And I think that any marketing company to be successful today needs to understand that the client is hiring. Sure, you have skills, and I'm sure all my competitors have great creative and skills, but honestly, it's understanding the target market that the company's trying to sell and acquire clients from.
So how do you measure the effectiveness of your marketing, given you've got the value that marketing is somewhat, to use your word, subservient to the business objectives, and needs to produce tangible value based on the objectives of the business? How do you set up an engagement so they're able to measure and deliver against that?
So, I mean, you want the simple answer? Moving the sales needle. That's it. I mean, that's why people reach out to marketing. Unless they're going, look, I need to rebrand the company, then that becomes a very deeper conversation. And why? What's the reason? Is it something happened in the company that negatively affected the brand? Are you trying to reach new markets with a different brand? Whatever the issue is, that's something to discuss. But what's amazing is that I was on Facebook this morning, and the sea of data, or the sea of data that's available is so deep and so wide, you could get lost in it for hours. So our goal when we engage with a client is to establish really simple KPIs, key performance indicators. Forgive me, really simple KPIs, like no more than 6. That's it. But those have been discussed and thoroughly talked about as indicators that will lead us to increase in sales.
And then you measure those and perform again.
And then we watch them like a hawk, we're on it. Yeah.
What's the kind of the split of your work between the folks who just want to amplify an existing strategy versus those that need to overhaul their whole messaging or target market or things like that?
So I find that most really just need enhancing their existing strategy. Actually, most companies I meet don't even know what to do because the audiences are just so fragmented. There's so many channels. There's so many ways to market now. It's for a marketer, I'm excited by it and overwhelmed all at the same time because everything is changing every day. So I help the company pick and choose what is going to work best for them within their budget. And that's something that it's almost negotiated because they come with their preconceived notions. For instance, their 18-year-old nephew said they should be on TikTok. I said, well, that's cool. I said, as your 18-year-old nephew, your customer. Well, no. Okay. It's a life conversation, but it's very much a negotiation as to understand their perceptions of marketing versus what can and can't be done, what true expectations should be. So I found over the years um, that we are so successful with companies that have a culture that matches our company, right? Their client's culture has the most impact on the efficacy of any marketing program that one might endeavor to start or begin. Because if I have to constantly go there and sell them on doing marketing or constantly convince them to stay on this channel, it's sort of a colossal waste of my time and their money. If they have a trust with their marketing agency, which, I always try to sit at the table strategy because to me, I'm fascinated by it. I love marketing challenges. But more importantly, it's actually a long-term strategy for having clients for a long, we've had clients here for 25, 30 years because they trust us and they know that when they ask us a good question, it's not self-serving our answer. It's really honestly on their behalf. This is what you should be doing. Look, we don't do this. Go here and do it over here. Yeah.
How effectively are you able to discern up front when you're talking to a new prospective client, to what extent they share those values and will be with you for, a decade plus?
So great question because it's a difficult thing to ascertain. You have to pay attention quite a bit to the details. What they're saying and how they're saying it are so important as indicators of their culture and how they may treat an outside relationship and, what value they put on it. An indicator might be whether they've had a relationship with a marketing agency in the past. I've learned that companies that have never had a relationship with a marketing agency never really last as clients because they're learning how to deal with an outside firm. Um, and they have an inherent mistrust of it because they've never bought it. I mean, think about you buying a service that you've never bought before. You come at it from a point of view of, I'm not sure if this is going to work. You know, what's happening, right?
Or my expectations might be way too high.
Way too high? Absolutely. Or even way too low. There's no trust. And without trust, look, marketing agencies work at their best when it is an open, valued, and trusted relationship. I've learned that. As a matter of fact, I had a management consultant come in and take a look at my firm a bunch of years ago. She interviewed all the clients, interviewed all the staff, and asked us, okay, what do you think the best client is? And of course, my CFO said, well, the ones that pay on time and are profitable. And my art director said, well, ones that we can create all kinds of great ideas. And I said, well, ones that are benefiting and making money from what we do. She said, well, those are the ones you have the most open, valued, and trusted relationship with. So as a company that concerns themselves with the value we bring and our positive effect on a company, I look for that, right? I engender it. And if someone I feel is, so I only start with 3-month engagements because it's a test not only for them, but for us as well.
It kind of reminds me of a story from many years ago in my career at a previous company. We were needed to select a payroll service. We started hiring employees. And, this was, early 2000s, and, all this new stuff was coming on the web. You had these portals and theories of employee self-service and reports you can run on demand. You don't pick up the phone and call in payroll like you used to have to do. And I'm like, I want something like that. And I was talking, my business partner had me speak to kind of a traditional old school payroll guy. And I told him what I was looking for. And he's like, yeah, you need to go hire one of those firms and see how it works out. And if it doesn't work out, call me in 6 months. Because my expectations were probably way too high. And sure enough, I ended up disappointed.
Yeah, and that's why I recommend to other. As a matter of fact, I know a bunch of agencies around the country. We have a group, we meet, and I'm always telling them, be exquisite about who you take on as a client. I've had experiences in the past where clients who are not the biggest have drained the resources of the firm without really a conscious knowing on my part, because nice guy, very amenable, friendly, but highly demanding. And one day, I get on the phone and he says, "Hey, Mitch, I found this guy who could do what you do for half the price." And I said, "Great." I said, "Give me his number. I'd love to talk to him." And I got off the phone and it was like the weight of the world was off my shoulders. And I realized something then is that not every client, I don't need to take every client, especially ones that are going to drain because my staff was drained. Everybody was feeling the stress from this one client. And, the money was good, but that's not what life is all about, right? All my staff here, one of my policies is to enjoy what we do. Let's have fun. If someone calls with an emergency, it's okay. It's just marketing. We can fix it. It's
Yeah.
okay. So that's how I approach business. I try to keep a balance, not only for me, but for my staff as well.
Right. And I think we need to avoid that tendency to kind of blame the client all the time too, or the client's not a fit. We need to make sure that we, as a service provider, are a good fit, a great fit for some segment of the market and not just blame everybody else. But we got to make sure that we've designed a firm that has a focus in a certain area that's really valuable to some segment of the market where work with those clients. They love us, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. And the knowledge, the self-awareness of that is really important, I think, for service-based businesses as a whole. All we have is time. We're selling time. And the value of that time is determined by the client. Honestly, you're going to determine it. You're going to set a price, but that'll either attract or not attract a certain level of client, right? I teach entrepreneurs over at sorry, I'm pointing this way because the
Yeah.
school that way, but I teach entrepreneurs at Hofstra University, and that's one of the things that we talk about the most is pricing for profit for the market that they're going after. It's a pretty long discussion, and each business has its own. Look, I have competitors out here that charge 4 times my price. To me, okay, God bless them. I don't do that. I could, but I don't. I choose to, all I want to do is have great marketing challenges, make a fair profit. Not looking to be, a billionaire. And I just like to enjoy the work.
Right. It's kind of leading into how you measure success. We've been talking a lot about how we help, make clients more successful and how we measure success for clients. But how do you measure success internally at your firm? Like,
Internally?
yeah, like growth, profit, work-life balance, whatever you're looking to do.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess that's really on several different levels, right? One is the pure financial piece. We have to be profitable or else we're out of business. So we have to charge for fair profit and give fair or great value. I always say we have to give great value. That's what we're here for. The other thing is quality of life within the company and outside the company. I'm very careful and attuned to my workers' safety, their comfort. What do you need? What do you want to see? How would you improve it? And I'm also asking them what's important to them and how can this agency support them in what they do. Maybe I used to have an employee that was starting a nonprofit. I said, great, we'll help you. We'll do the logo, we'll do the website, no charge, because that's important. It was important to her. And for me, we're only as good as the people that we have. So, that's how I approach. I guess those are the measures of success is how happy people are, which I can't measure. And the profit of the firm. You know what's a measure? If I go home and I put my head to the pillow and I fall asleep, and I'm not worried about anything. I had a good day. and that's a good measure.
That's a great measure. That's also a hard one to achieve.
Sometimes, it's easier than you think. Honestly, so here's my recommendation is write down the things that are bothering you, top of mind bothering. Generally, those are things that you're avoiding. Most people avoid those things because either they don't want to do the work, they don't understand it, it's too difficult, whatever the reason is. I don't care. The fact is that you write them down and look at them and say, okay, what has to be done today? Circle that one and then focus it. Turn off your phone, close your door, and focus on that one item. Look, as humans, we're not built for multitasking. I know you multitask, I multitask. The world multitasks. But honestly, as a organism, we are not built to multitask, even though we can. We do our best. I've seen it out of me, out of my staff. When they're focused on one thing and one thing only, the results are always really good. Always.
Yeah, I'm always, whenever somebody seems like they're just stressed out, but still not getting a lot of work completed, it's like, well, check your email like once an hour. We don't need to have it open on the screen, looking at every new thing that comes in and then worrying about it in the background while we're trying to do something else. Like, you're right. Like, multitasking is really shifting focus back and forth very quickly, but then you lose the benefit of just being able to focus on that one thing and give it your all and get it done so you can move on to the next thing and feel good about what you did with the first thing.
Yeah. And by the way, I think clients are paying us for our focus. And I always say this, we got to give them the best we have. That's what they're paying for. They're paying for our expertise and the best we have. So why short shrift a client? That I don't feel good about that. I want to give them what they expect, what they value, and exceed their expectations. So yeah, it's an interesting conversation to have about that. It's yeah.
What do you have any particular challenges these days with achieving the kind of success that you want to have?
Challenges?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
What are
I don't
those?
want to get political in this conversation because as a marketing agent, we try to be Switzerland, and we recommend that to our clients because if they take a stand, we support them, but understand that it will piss 50% of their audience, right?
Yeah.
So the present administration is very chaotic, and that's bred a tremendous amount of uncertainty in the marketplace. So much so, I had one client cut their ad budget 50%. They're trying to corral money so that they purchase the goods they need from China within the next 90 days. The consumer, from all the reports I read right now, consumers acting and buying as if it's a recession. It's not the quantity of purchases that have gone down, but the ticket price per purchase has gone down. And this is across the board. This is from some local retailers, from Walmart, from Dollar Store. They're all saying the same thing. So there's a shift. So as marketers, good marketers need to have their ear to the ground and constantly understand, listening, right?
Yeah. I mean, you've been through a number of market disruptions in your career. How would you compare and contrast, this one now versus COVID versus the Great Recession in 2008, 2009 versus the dot-com crash in 2011? Like,
Boy, do I feel old now, man.
hey, I would live through all those too.
How does this compare?
Compare and contrast, does it?
Well, if I think about it and focus on it, it feels different because there are many different things that are happening. The administration desired to remove the departments within the government. They have a desire to just rip apart the administration for whatever reason. That's what they want to do. So that chaos from our political government is breeding a fear amongst a lot of people and uncertainty amongst others, even those that supported it and wanted it. It still is an uncertain time. So it's different. It feels different. Now, if I take a look at it from pure number standpoint, we're in a recession. It's recessionary. And for marketing, what do? You put your foot on the gas, because while everybody is cutting back, your price per lead, per impression, per click is going down. And it's proven over the past, how many? 3, 4? I don't know. It's proven that those that market through the recession come out in much better position after. Way, way better. And have taken more market share and have made more profits. So, yeah.
Cool. So I'm in the, accounting and finance side of things in my day job here. So I got to ask you at least one question about that. So, how do you go about managing the accounting and finance in your firm?
I'm not big enough to have a full-time CFO. I have a part-time CFO, obviously a CPA, and bookkeeping is a shared process with the operational software we run here. So, as a small business, who has been through fraud, someone perpetrated fraud on the company's checking account several years back. I watch the account like a hawk. I see, I look at every single check being cashed, every single check being written. It might take extra time, but you know what? I don't want to go down that path of losing money because somebody is a bad actor is acting up.
Yeah,
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it's scary how many small businesses get stolen from by their bookkeeper. And there are a few steps, relatively basic steps that you're probably doing now that will head off, 99% of that potential.
Yeah,
But
this wasn't a bookkeeper. The fraud was outside. We do business internationally, and this was a few years back. We had fraud from someone, because we send checks overseas to overseas. We do business internationally for our clients. We buy media in other countries, in country. So we did send checks. We wire money now, which in and of itself has some issues. But sending checks, someone had duplicated a check several times and was using it and cashing it on their mobile phone. And I caught it, thankfully, just by sheer luck. And when I went into the bank and I'm saying, guys, you're not doing your job, because they used the signature of one of my partners that had passed away. So I said, there's no way he's signing that check unless we dig him up and he's alive. There's no way he's signing, so they were very good. They refunded all the money, and, but they can't guarantee that it's not going to happen again. So I've taken an extra step of looking at everything. I don't know how you prevent, how you prevent the fraud. Is that the method, or are there other things?
Yeah. Well, one of the things we do with a lot of our clients where we run the accounts payable process is we implement a system like Bill.com where the payments are drawn upon a Bill.com bank account. So the client's, account number and routing number are masked to the vendor. Nobody in the world who gets a check or, an electronic payment knows the client's account number and routing number. So it's kind of like a payroll service where the payroll service withdraws the funds from your bank account, passes it through their bank account, and then distributes the checks and the direct deposits out to the employee. So it's similar on the AP side, and there are internal controls and everything, but logistically, to prevent the problem that happened to you, or somebody looked at the paper check, they could make a copy of it. They could see their routing number, account number. They could print up their own blank checks, start signing them, casting them. We try to head that off with a service like a Bill.com.
Interesting. I think we get checks from clients that use that Bill.com.
Yeah, it's very popular. I mean, my whole industry was kind of built on. I hate to give them so much credit, but we're kind of built on Bill.com because it started SmartBooks in 2009. And, we work remotely to do bookkeeping and accounting, including accounts payable and bill payment for clients. And prior to services like Bill.com, like I had a competitor that started a few years before me, and they had either they had signature authority on the client bank account, which is scary, or they were FedExing checks back and forth. They'd print checks out of QuickBooks and then mail them to the client to sign and send out. I'm like, that's the most inefficient process ever. But that's what they had to do because they were trying to do this work remotely, and there was no kind of online accounts payable system they could use. And so Bill.com came along, and now everybody can do it remotely who wants to.
Interesting. I'll have to take a look at that.
So so you got you've got a fractional CFO and you've got some bookkeeping getting done. Like and you're monitoring, bank and credit card statements to catch fraudulent transactions, but what's the real data or metrics or information that you feel like you need to know as the business owner to feel comfortable that the business is performing well?
So two things. And I look at the P&Ls on a monthly basis as accrual and cash. Accrual shows me my billing, and cash shows me how much cash is coming in, because positive cash flow is the bomb, man. It's what you need to have rolling. If you don't have positive cash flow, you're going to be choking. So those are the two areas I look at, and I'll dip into accounts receivables, and if calls need to be made, whatever, we do that. But that's really where I'm at. I'm pulling up the P&Ls. Matter of fact, it's towards the end of the month now. In a couple of days, I'll probably pull up P&Ls. I'll spend an hour just reviewing them. And then that's what I do personally. When my CFO comes in, we actually take a look at it from an entire calendar year. If there are any bumps in cost of goods or overhead, we take a look at it to make sure that something didn't happen we didn't account for, or something I could plan for, or all those anomalies that run through. I'm sure you do the same thing, right?
Yeah, definitely. We do the basics, reconcile bank accounts and run balance sheet schedules and produce financial statements. But what we really like to do is financial performance metrics and track trends over time and help our clients understand how their business is performing, not just how much cash they have in the bank, not just did they make money or not last month, but how is their gross margin trending year over year? What's kind of like 3-year revenue growth rate, or how does cash flow compare to reported accrual basis profit? And, do we have a problem with receivables collection? What's the day sales outstanding, the DSO? Like what's really driving the financial statements? And then if there's something that's off, what can you do about it to improve things?
So, I learned about a very fascinating thing called trailing 12. I'm sure
Yeah.
you've, right? And if you just by simply keeping trailing 12 months sales, it'll show some indications you may not like or you like, but it'll show you indications of the business that are a bit more stable than month to month.
Yeah. Our default shows, the trailing month versus last year, the trailing 3 months versus last year, and the trailing 12 months versus last year. And somebody really wants to talk about year to date, we can talk about year to date, but year to date isn't that meaningful to me because there's a big difference between year to date in February and year to date in October, right? And so the trailing 12 and the trailing 3,
Right.
more consistent. Anyway, we don't want to spend too much time talking about accounting, and we're going to lose our whole audience here.
Okay. Well, as if they're all business owners, this is something they need to hear too. Many business owners and service-based businesses I know, with the exception of finance and CPAs, right? Most business owners kind of push the financials aside and don't pay attention. I know I did that early in my career, and it came to bite me in the butt with a huge tax burden at the end of the year, and just just total not knowing what's going on at all, right? So I think it's important for everyone to hear who runs a business.
Yeah. And you're not going to become an expert on these things or even know what to ask necessarily unless you've been in business long enough. So the key is, especially in, first decade or two as a business owner, to get the right advisors in place who can help you, before something wrong happens. Anyway, What excites you about the future in your own business or your industry?
So, well, there's so many things, but right now, what's top of mind is AI. We've been using AI here at the agency for a little over 2 years, um, and never it just exploded in the number of applications in the past 3 months. The growth has been phenomenal in terms of a new technology being adapted, and the uses of it are very far-reaching. It's good and it's bad at the same time. But I have a policy here that, and that's what's exciting about AI is how much will it impact our business? But right now, it's a huge impact, and will that continue to be a huge impact? Um, that's exciting because it's amazing. And I'm on a Zoom call with a client, and I said, bring up your Meta business account because he had some issues with the Metapixel. I don't want to get technical, but I said, okay, bring that up, and I'm walking him through it. And I said, all right, click here, and I realized Meta changed the order of things again. They changed where they put stuff, and all these platforms seem to be continually doing that, changing the interface, the platform on a fairly regular basis, which causes us extra time because we actually have to learn it, right?
Yep.
So it's exciting. As I said before, it's exciting and overwhelming all at the same time.
So how do you and your team prioritize and figure out what's worth focusing on and learning and using versus what's just noise out there?
So what we do as a rule, any new feature that comes out, we test on ourselves, my company. I budget for it. I budget for testing because I'm not recommending anything to a client unless I know it works. For instance, I think it was 3 years ago, Google came out with dynamic ads. And dynamic ads was the first iteration of AI where you fed Google, this is on their AdWords platform. You feed them headlines, body copy, images, keywords, and they assemble the ad and deliver it. Right? Truly customized, as AI would say, tailored, uh, customized advertising. And in the beginning, it was horrible. It's horrible. Tested it, cost way too much money. About 6 months later, went back in, and now we started to get some traction. Where now we don't do AdWords campaigns without using it because the cost per click goes way down and number of clicks go way up.
Okay. So we spent a lot of time so far talking about learning from you and talking about, clients, client selection, your firm, what's working, some cautionary tales around accounting and finance management. But let's talk a little bit about you and your background. I mean, if we go back to days of Little Mix, did you think you would, be a founder and business owner running your own firm, or what were some of the key milestones that got you to where you are today?
Little Mitch, yeah, I was a crazy little kid. So when I was way younger, before the internet, we had horse and carriages and we walked uphill everywhere we went. I was actually a printer's apprentice. I worked on a litho machine, Heidelberg, for those of you who were old enough to know. Actually set type in a foundry, metal type. And I was fascinated by it. And what fascinated me when I was printing was why did they decide to do it this way? When I'm looking at the material that's coming out of the press, I was questioning what the decision was behind why and how something was designed a certain way or said a certain thing. And that drove me to go to school. I majored in design and minored in marketing because I was so fascinated by it. That's what got me to where I am today. So I actually was working. My career started in Manhattan. I was working for a small agency, and couldn't take the commute. Oh my God! I was living. I still am on Long Island, and taking the Long Island Railroad in every day. And at that time, the windows on there were sort of yellowish that reflected everything. And I saw myself grow old on the train. I said, I'm out of here. That's it. I'm done. So got off the train and just by sheer luck or personality or whatever it was, I started making connections, networking, which is called that. I didn't know it was called that then, and finding clients.
Literally, you got up the train one day, or this was a gradual process?
No, I'm telling you, it was within 2 weeks because I had to quit and give them 2 weeks notice. But I looked in the mirror and I saw, it was like a mirror almost, the windows, and I saw myself grow old. I said, I'm out of here. You know, it's a, it's a, it takes a special person to, start running for a train at 7:10 because you're not going to get, if you miss the 7:10, you have to wait till the 7:50, and that means you won't get home. I don't, that's sort of abrasive to my personality. Yeah, so I got off the train, and by naturally networking, which I still do today, I ended up actually within 2 or 3 years got Weight Watchers International as an account.
Wow, that's quite an account for a early stage firm.
Yeah. Now I didn't do the media buy. At the time, the media buy was rolling between at that time Dentsu, Y&R. These are old firms. Yeah, I didn't do the media. What I did was in-house promotion countrywide, which was a very nice piece of work for my firm. Yeah, and then all of a sudden, and I was working out of my bedroom, right? And I had a drawing board in my bedroom, and I would work to 3, 4 in the morning, go to sleep. And the first call was a client, and they'd always say, "Mitch, did I wake you up?" No, 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 no. I'm been up for a while, and go to work. So, yeah. Then I needed an office, and I needed a copy machine, and I accrued technology as the need. Like Weight Watchers called me one day, says, "Hey, can we fax this over to you?" I didn't have a fax machine. I said, "Hold on a second. It's broken. Let me fix it. I'll call you right back." I run out, I buy one, I come back. It's working now. So, I was hustling, right? Which is what young entrepreneurs need to do, is to hustle to make it happen.
What you got you confident enough to start hiring people for your firm?
When I actually couldn't take on any more business because I was just loaded. I tried to squeeze one more hour in a day, one more day in a week, and I learned like it can't happen. Time is finite. So I said I need to get some help. So yeah, that was really the start. And what I teach the entrepreneurs over at Hofstra is that to plan for it. I didn't plan for it. I just did it as it came. But when you're building a business, starting a business, you may be starting by yourself, but there'll be a point in time is if you don't hire someone, your business, you'll be on that entrepreneurial roller coaster because you get peak, you get busy, you don't get business, you start to go down. So I say the time to start looking for someone is now. And the area that you should look for is what you don't like to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So if you could look back over the years and give some advice to yourself when you were just starting out with the firm, what would you tell yourself?
Plan a lot better. I didn't have a mentor. I had my dad who was a business owner, but he had no concept of marketing. None. But he did have some business acumen. And actually, when he retired, he came in, was my bookkeeper, part-time bookkeeper, which was fun. I would say find a mentor in the industry. Avoid those potholes. I mean, I probably have made every mistake known to man. Although I shouldn't say that because I'm sure there's some I haven't made yet. Avoid the potholes. I think that's really what a good mentor will help you do, is avoid the potholes and plan. Oh my gosh. That's what I would tell young Mitch.
Okay. Good to know. When we spoke last week, you also mentioned exploring mergers and acquisitions in your space. Anything you want to kind of talk about your perspective or experience or interests there?
So for any business, M&A is a viable growth mechanism. And I'm no stranger to that. Originally I merged when I was on my own years ago. I merged with a couple of guys. One retired, one died, and I'm back on my own. I would definitely love to talk to firms that are interested in merging or being acquired. It's a growth strategy. Certainly scales a company, and it's something that I'm very interested in. Matter of fact, I looked at a firm in Pennsylvania, but it was honestly too far away, and it needed on-site management, and that's something that would hurt the business I have here. So I decided against that. But it was pretty close. Great people, similar size, and similar type of client. So their staff was used to working in in the manufacturing sector. What they were good at.
Okay, listeners, if any of you agency owners are interested in exploring a merger or selling your agency to Mitch, reach out to him. So where can they contact you, Mitch?
631-842-4600. That's 631-842-4600. Or my email, mtobol, MTOBOL, at cgtmarketing.com.
That's bold. You're giving out your email address publicly and your phone number. But yes, you don't have to get up to your phone, but email comes in.
You know something, with the amount of emails I get, I think everybody has it anyway.
Well, thank you so much, Mitch, for all your time and sharing all the experiences and wisdom that you've accumulated. I really appreciate you sharing this all with the audience today.
Oh, no problem. It's fun. I enjoyed it. I hope it's useful. Anybody who's listening or watching or whatever, I hope it's I've said some things that are useful to you, because that's important to me.
Yeah. So for those of you listening, if you've learned something today, please share information about this podcast. Tell other people about it. We're trying to build more community within the marketing agency community and get good information into other people's hands and help other peers. So thanks again, Mitch.
Oh, my pleasure, Cal. It was great to be here. Thanks.
This has been another exciting episode of the Marketing Agency Power Hour. We will see you all next time. Another episode in the books. Thank you so much for tuning in. For show notes and more, please visit marketingagencypowerhour.com. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, providing marketing agencies with bookkeeping, accounting, and finance support. With SmartBooks, you gain the clarity and confidence to make your agency a success. Until next time.